There was one rule on the alien world of Vale. Throw that stood above all others. It was not written on walls. It was not shouted by guards. It did not need to be repeated. Everyone knew it. No one was allowed to speak to the alien queen, not soldiers who fought and died in her name, not scientists who served her empire, not even the high elders who advised her throne. The queen was more than a ruler. To her people, she was a living symbol of destiny. Her voice was believed to carry power. Her words could bring peace or end entire civilizations. Because of this, she remained distant, silent, and unreachable, and humans were the lowest presence on Vaelthra. They were guests, captured after a short and hopeless war. Not slaves, but not free either. Observed, studied, judged. Among them was a human named Ethan Hale. Ethan was not a soldier or a hero. He was a quiet systems engineer. His job was simple: keep alien machines running, follow orders, and stay invisible. He spoke little, listened more, and never caused trouble. That was how humans survived here. Every night, Ethan returned to his small, assigned room. Metal walls, cold light, a narrow bed. It was not a prison, but it felt like one. Still, he was alive, and that was enough. Or so he believed. That night, the air felt different. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. Ethan sat up in bed, his heart suddenly uneasy. Vaelthran technology did not flicker without reason. Then he heard it, the soft hiss of his door unlocking. Ethan froze. No guard announced himself. No alarms sounded. Slowly, the door slid open. A tall figure stood in the doorway, surrounded by faint silver light. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He recognized her instantly. The crown of living crystal, the glowing skin like moonlight on water, the eyes ancient, silver and impossibly calm, the alien queen. His mind screamed one word: death. Ethan fell from the bed to his knees, his forehead touching the floor. "My queen," he whispered in fear, "forgive me. I did not summon, do not move," a gentle voice said. It was not loud. It was not commanding. It was soft. Ethan froze, shaking. The queen stepped inside, and the door closed behind her. The room felt smaller now, like the universe itself had bent inward. Ethan did not dare lift his head. "I know the rule," the queen said quietly, "and I am the one breaking it." Ethan's heart pounded painfully in his chest. She walked closer. He could see her shadow fall across the floor near his hands. "You are Ethan Hale," she said. He swallowed. "Yes." "My queen." "You do not bow when you think no one is watching," she continued. "You do not curse my world. You do not beg." Ethan did not know what to say. She stopped in front of him. "Look at me," she said. Every instinct screamed at him not to, but something in her voice was not threatening. Slowly, Ethan raised his head. Their eyes met. He expected anger, power, cold authority. Instead, he saw something else: tiredness, loneliness. The queen studied him, not as a ruler, but as if she was searching for something she had lost long ago. "You fear me?" she said. "Yes," Ethan replied honestly. "Good," she said. "Then you are honest." She turned and sat on the edge of his bed. Mind nearly broke at the sight. No one had ever seen the queen sit like a normal being. "I did not come as a queen tonight," she said softly. "I came as someone who can no longer speak freely." Ethan's voice trembled. Why me? She looked at him again. Because you are human, she said, and humans listen, even when they are forbidden to speak, outside. The great empire of Velthra slept inside a small room meant for a nobodyer. Rule that shaped worlds had just been broken, and nothing would ever be the same again. Ethan's chest heaved, and his mind raced faster than he could control. He had grown up hearing stories about the alien queen, the ruler of Velthra, who could bend life itself with her words. To touch her, or even look at her, was considered the highest honor. But to speak to her, that was punishable by death. And here she was, sitting on the edge of his bed. Her silver eyes were not filled with rage or judgment, but with something he could not name: curiosity, sorrow, maybe even hope. The glow of her skin softened the harsh metal walls of his room, bathing everything in a cold, pale light that made the moment feel unreal. Ethan's mouth was dry, and he could hardly form words. But the queen spoke first. You fear the laws of your world, she said softly. Her voice was musical, yet tinged with the weight of centuries. And yet you have never betrayed them in thought, even when you are alone. That is rare. Ethan swallowed hard. I don't know what to say, my queen. I have never imagined that you would. His words faltered. How could he even begin to describe what was happening? How could a human who had lived a life of fear and obedience explain this impossible moment? She shook her head slightly, her long, delicate fingers brushing the edge of the bed. I did not come to punish you. I came to speak because I have no one else. My people cannot hear me. My advisors fear what I know. And I, her voice cracked slightly, I cannot remain silent any longer. Ethan's eyes widened. The queen, powerful, eternal, untouchable, was telling him she had no one to trust. His mind reeled. Why me? He asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Because humans are curious, she replied. Humans ask questions, even when they are forbidden. Humans do not hide behind protocol. You do not pretend to understand everything, yet you still try. You see the world as it is, not as you were told to see it. That is why I came to you. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached for the small data pad he always kept nearby. Normally, he would use it to log maintenance issues or read reports. Tonight, it felt useless. I'm just a human. I fix machines. I follow orders. He stopped, realizing he was trying to explain himself to a queen, a being whose power could annihilate entire cities. You are more than that, she said firmly. Her silver eyes burned into his. Your courage is quiet, but it is there. It does not roar like the soldiers. It does not demand recognition like the commanders. It simply exists, and it is rare in my world. That is why I chose to come to you. Her words were overwhelming. Ethan's mind spun with disbelief. A queen, someone who could dictate life and death for billions, was here, sharing her thoughts and fears with him. It was too much to process, yet it felt human, real, vulnerable. Your world, she continued, lowering her voice even further. The empire is dying, slowly, quietly, and no one dares to speak the truth. My people cling to tradition, to ceremony, to rules that protect their pride but blind them to reality. If no one acts, all will be lost. Ethan's throat tightened. He had seen failure before. He had seen disasters humans could barely survive. But hearing it from a queen, the weight of it made his chest ache. Then, what can I do? He whispered. The Queen's expression softened, a rare glimpse of emotion crossing her face. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I knew I had to speak to someone who could see the truth without fear. Someone who could respond not with obedience, but with understanding. That is why I am here." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The hum of alien machines was the only sound, a reminder that the world outside still moved on, unaware of this forbidden meeting. Ethan stared at her, the weight of the moment pressing on him. His life, which had always felt small and insignificant, suddenly mattered. Somehow, he had been chosen to bear witness to a queen's confession. Finally, he found his voice. If my people were in danger, I would try to help," he said cautiously, "even if I were afraid." The Queen's silver eyes softened even more, and a faint smile touched her lips. "Then you understand," she said. "That is all I ask. I only needed someone who could see the truth and not hide behind fear. That is a courage my own people have forgotten." She leaned back slightly, her glowing form filling the room with a strange warmth. Ethan's fear had not gone away, but it was joined by something newer, strange, fragile hope. Somehow, in this impossible moment, two beings from entirely different worlds were connected, not by power, but by honesty, and Ethan realized that the universe had just shifted. One forbidden conversation, one broken rule, had begun a chain of events that neither he nor the Queen could have imagined. The night was far from over, and the world outside still slept. But in this quiet, impossible room, something extraordinary had begun. Ethan could hardly breathe. The Queen sat across from him, her glowing form still illuminating the cold metal walls, yet somehow making them feel warmer. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but the words stuck in his throat. He had never been this close to a being so powerful. Not even in his wildest dreams could he have imagined a queen, the alien queen, ruler of billions, choosing to confide in a human like him. The Queen's silver eyes never left him. "I cannot speak to anyone else," she said quietly, almost to herself. "My advisors would kill me if they knew what I know. My elders would accuse me of treason. My people, they would not listen." Her voice carried weight, but beneath it was something raw. Ethan realized that this being, who seemed untouchable to the universe, was alone in her burden. "My world," she continued, her words slow and deliberate. "It is dying, slowly, silently. The core beneath our cities, the heart of our civilization, is failing. Our technology, our very essence is deteriorating, and the people who should know refuse to admit it. They hide the truth, afraid of panic, afraid of change." Ethan's heart thumped painfully. He had worked with failing machines before, but this was different. "Then, what can be done?" he whispered, leaning forward. "Is there nothing left to fix?" The Queen shook her head, a gesture filled with centuries of sorrow. "There is something, but it is not enough. The solutions require trust, cooperation, and courage that my people do not possess. And I am trapped by tradition. I am trapped by law. I am trapped by a throne that does not allow me to speak freely." Ethan's mind raced. He wanted to help, but how could he, a human, make a difference on an alien world with a queen whose power could crush him in an instant? Yet he could not look away from her. There was an urgency in her gaze, a silent plea that he could not ignore. "Then why me?" he asked again, his voice barely audible. "Because humans are different," she said, leaning slightly closer. Her glow seemed to pulse with emotion. Your species survives by asking questions, even when forbidden. Your species listens, even when it could ignore. You see the truth, not as it is told, but as it exists. That is why I came to you. Because I needed someone who could respond with honesty, not fear. Someone who could see my world as it truly is. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of her words settle into his chest. He had never been told that he could matter so much to a world, so alien, so far beyond his understanding. He was just a human, small and fragile. But somehow, in the eyes of this queen, he was more than that. He was someone who could witness truth and act. Your people are blind to their own destruction, she continued. They cling to tradition and ceremony while the foundation of our world crumbles. I have tried to warn them. I have tried to act, but no one listens. That is why I came to you. Because you are not afraid to see the truth. Ethan's chest tightened. I don't know if I can help, he admitted. I'm just a human. I don't have your power. I don't know your science. The queen smiled faintly, a gesture both sad and tender. It is not about power. It is about perspective. Sometimes a world does not need strength. It needs honesty. It needs courage without arrogance. That is what humans have taught me without even knowing it. That is why I chose you. Her words struck him with a force he could not describe. For centuries, she had ruled, commanding armies, influencing worlds, and yet she came to a human for guidance. And not because she needed orders, but because she needed truth. I fear for my people, she admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. And yet, I cannot act alone. If I do, I will be destroyed. And still, I could not remain silent. Not tonight. Not while the fate of my civilization hangs in balance. Ethan wanted to speak, but no words came. He had never met anyone, alien or human, so vulnerable yet so commanding. The queen's power was absolute, yet here she was, asking him, needing him to share in her burden. Finally, he spoke. Then, we face it together, he said, his voice trembling but firm. If your world can be saved, I'll do what I can, even if it's small, even if it seems impossible. The queen's eyes softened, and she let out a small sigh, the first sound that seemed human rather than regal. Perhaps that is why I came, she whispered. Perhaps you remind me that even a small voice can change the fate of a world. And perhaps, for the first time in centuries, I feel hope. For the first time, Ethan understood the weight of what had just happened. A queen had chosen to break the rules, to confide in a human, to risk everything for the sake of honesty and survival. And in that moment, Ethan realized something profound. Sometimes the smallest, simplest truths could change the course of entire galaxies. The night stretched on, silent except for the faint hum of machines. Two worlds, alien and human, were suddenly connected, not by power, not by law, but by something far stronger, trust. And Ethan knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. Ethan barely slept that night. His mind kept replaying every word the queen had spoken, every glance, every pause, every unspoken plea. He could still feel the weight of her silver eyes, the glow of her skin, and the quiet vulnerability in her voice. It was more than awe. It was fear, yes, but it was also a strange, unshakable connection he could not explain. Somehow, in that small room, he had become part of something far larger than himself. By morning, however, the world outside his room had not changed. The corridors of the human settlement on Vaelthra were busy with guards, engineers, and alien officials moving about as if nothing had happened. Yet Ethan could sense it. The air felt heavier. The silence of those who normally observed him had an edge. Something was wrong. It did not take long to find out. As he attempted to leave his quarters, 2 guards stepped forward and stopped him. Their faces were unreadable, but their tone carried the weight of imminent punishment. "Ethan Hale," one of them said coldly, "you are to report immediately to the High Council." Fear gripped his chest. He knew, instinctively, that it had to do with last night. No human or alien was ever summoned to the High Council for mere mistakes. His thoughts raced. Did someone see her? Did sensors detect movement in my room? Did the Queen herself? Before he could dwell too long, the guards escorted him through the vast corridors of the alien palace. Walls shimmered with embedded crystals, reflecting light in ways humans could never understand. The air smelled faintly metallic, like ozone after a storm. Ethan kept his head down, his mind racing. He felt smaller than ever. A human standing before beings older than civilizations, accused of breaking laws he did not fully understand. When he arrived, the chamber was massive, bigger than any human council room. Alien elders sat in high chairs, their expressions rigid and unyielding. Soldiers lined the walls, silent and alert, and at the center, on her throne of living crystal, was the alien queen. Ethan froze, expecting anger, fury, or dismissal. But the queen, she was calm. Her glow was steady, her silver eyes fixed on the elders. Ethan realized, in that instant, that the entire assembly waited for her to speak, and the weight of their expectations pressed down like a physical force. "Ethan Hale," one of the elders said, his voice harsh and clipped. "You have been summoned for the crime of speaking with the Queen. You have broken the sacred law. How do you plead?" Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. I didn't mean to." He stopped. Every instinct told him to beg, to plead for mercy, but the Queen had not asked him to do that. She had trusted him. He owed her honesty. The Queen rose from her throne. The crystal crown atop her head reflected the light like 1,000 stars. "I broke the rule," she said. Her voice echoed, calm but commanding. "I came to him." Gasps filled the chamber. Some elders recoiled. Soldiers shifted uneasily. A few humans in the gallery stared, incredulous. The Queen's words shattered centuries of tradition in a single sentence. "Silence," she said firmly. "You may judge him if you wish, but the fault is mine. I chose to speak. I chose to come. I chose to trust a human." The room was stunned into silence. Ethan felt as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every instinct told him to kneel, to apologize, to hide. But he did not. Because the Queen had not commanded, obedient she had shown trust. "Then speak," she commanded. "Ethan Hale may answer once." Ethan's hands shook as he stepped forward. His mind raced for words that could explain truth to beings who had never needed truth before. His voice was barely audible at first. "My species," he began, "is small. We are fragile. We make mistakes. We fight. We fail. But we survive. We survive because we do not hide from reality. We face it, even when it is frightening, even when it is impossible." He paused, his chest aching under the gaze of the aliens. The elders whispered among themselves, clearly shocked at the audacity of a human daring to speak such words. Ethan pressed on. "I don't have your power," he said, and I don't have your knowledge. But I can see the truth, and I can speak it. That is all I can offer. Sometimes the smallest voice is the only one that matters. Sometimes honesty is more powerful than a throne or a law or fear. The Queen's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly. This is why I came, she said quietly, almost to herself. Because the truth, when spoken, can change everything. Ethan felt a weight lift, replaced by a fragile hope. Perhaps this meeting, forbidden as it was, had the power to awaken the hearts of a civilization blinded by pride. And in that moment, he realized the danger was not the law itself, but the fear of breaking it. The elders whispered furiously. The soldiers bristled, and Ethan knew this moment would not end peacefully. But he also knew something far more important. He had been heard, not just by the Queen, but by a world that could no longer ignore the truth. For the first time in his life, a human mattered not because of strength, or skill, or weapons, but because of honesty. And that was a power far older and stronger than anything he had ever known. The High Council of Vaelthra was not known for mercy. Its elders were ancient, sharp, and unyielding. They had ruled the empire for centuries, guided by law, tradition, and fear. And now, in that enormous chamber filled with glittering crystals and hovering light panels, they faced something they could not understand: a human who had been chosen to hear a queen's secret, and had dared to speak.